everyone, it's Mari. I have another project for Honeybee Stamps, and I'm going to be starting off here with the Rectangle Spotlight stencil. And what I wanted to do was create a really pretty geometric rainbow effect on my card front. So I'm taking a bunch of Distress inks to create this rainbow effect using this stencil. What my idea was is to kind of create almost like a modern art sort of a look with my card front using these different rectangles, moving the little shapes around, turning the stencil, and so on and so forth to create this geometric pattern. So you'll see me doing this here as I'm blending on the distress inks. I started off with Barn Door and then I moved to Spice Marmalade. So this is Spice Marmalade here, and I'm just blending the larger rectangle below the smaller rectangle. And in this way, like I said, I'm just going to kind of create this modern art sort of look panel for the front of my card. So I'm working on some Neenah Solar White cardstock in 80 pound, and just using my waffle flower media mat underneath, just to, because it's kind of holding my cardstock in place while I hold the stencil, just keeping everything sort of constant in the spot while I am blending on this ink. So blending on some more of the Barn Door now, and now you can see I'm going to go back up to that little mustard seed area up at the top there just to complete that little rectangle. And then there's another little rectangle shape beside that that I put a little bit more Spice Marmalade in. Now I'm going down. I've shifted my stencil down a little bit to create a little area there with some more of the mustard seed, and I'm just going to extend that section a little bit over across sort of that top 1/3, the bottom of that top third section. Now I'm going in with some Twisted Citron, and I'm going to blend that rectangle. And this rectangle is a little bit more portrait mode than landscape. So I've shifted the stencil and turned it a little bit there too. And now I'm going in with some Mermaid Lagoon. And I'm going to create almost more of a square area with this section of my stencil. So I just really love how this turns out. I think it's a super cool way to use this stencil and to create a really interesting pattern for your card front. If you're interested in doing something like this, it's just another way that you can use this stencil to make sort of like an interesting pattern. And that last little section that's left, I'm going to use some Wilted Violet in that area to complete my card front. Now I've put my card front in my what I call my splatter box, and I'm going to just spritz on some really pretty shimmer spritz here, some sheer shimmer spritz. And now I'm just going to take some tissue and dab up the excess, and I'm just going to show you that up close here right away here so you can see what that looks like. It's just really pretty and sparkly, and I love how that just kind of finishes off this panel, adds a little bit more detail. Now I do run this panel through my die cutting machine with the Scallop A2 card frame die to finish off the card front and give it a little bit more detail. Now before I did that, I also add some white paint splatters, and these white paint splatters are just created with some Dina Wakley white acrylic paint, and I just watered that paint down, and you can just see here I'm picking it up with a little paintbrush. I'm going to splatter that on really loosely just to create a little bit more detail and interest on that front panel. Now I cut all of these different rainbow colored cardstocks in 1/8 inch strips, and my idea here is just to add even more detail to my card front by adding some division between the different sections of color with these colored cardstock strips. I just thought that was really an interesting way to add more detail. So I'm taking my Nuvo adhesive, I'm just adding a little bead of this adhesive between the colors, and then I'll take my colored cardstock strips and add those down in the different areas that divide off the sections of color. And you'll see this when I'm all finished doing this here, how this turns out. I think it's just kind of a really neat effect and just a bit more detail. So I'm just going to turn my panel over and trim off that excess cardstock, and I'll just go ahead and add more of those colors on, and then I'll show you when it's all finished. I just didn't want to bore you with showing you this whole process, because it's just the same thing over and over again, where I just add these different little bits of colored cardstock. And I really like how this turns out. I think it just adds a really cool effect. Now, I just love rainbow, but I think that right now I just feel like rainbow is something we need more of in our life. I feel like rainbow is really symbolic of a lot of things, and I just really love this, how this really bright rainbow pattern turned out with this card. Now I want to take my card panel and add some foam adhesive to the back. I'm just going to put that down and take off the release paper off the back and add that to my card panel. To my card base. The nice thing about doing this too is it's going to really flatten my card front out, because I do have a fair bit of mixed media on there. It just really nicely flattens that out on my A2 size card base, which is a 110-pound Neenah card base. Now, I used the Thankful honey cut to create the sentiment for the front of my card. I cut it out of white cardstock 3 times, and I will glue those different layers together. I'm going to take a whole bunch of floral die cut pieces from the Spring Bouquets dies, and I've just cut those out of a bunch of cardstocks, the same rainbow cardstock colors that I used for those little sections of my card and those strips. And I'm just going to place these different little floral bits down on my card front, and I'm going to glue some of them down flat, and some of them I am going to pop up on foam adhesive to give them some dimension. And I just wanted to add these florals just because I think they just look really pretty on here, and they just add a little bit of different interest because the background is really geometric. I thought that the floral pieces would just make this look really interesting and a nice contrast to the geometric background. And I'm going to use all of those same colors and just put them together in kind of an interesting bouncy pattern across the top half of the card, or sort of like a section through that top half. And that's just going to provide some interest to that area on my card. I don't usually create cards quite this busy and colorful. There's a lot going on here. But I just thought it was really interesting and fun. And it almost kind of has a little bit of a retro vibe to it. And I just thought it was really cute. And I just feel like right now everybody needs just a little bit of happiness and bright, sort of like colorful, interesting things in our lives. I think that this is just a really fun card. Now, I wanted to add this thankful to the background die that comes with that die set, and I wanted to put that in black so that it really pops on the card. And what I decided to do because of that, once I had this glued down, is I thought I also wanted to add some black centers to some of my flowers as well. So I go ahead and do that. I cut some more of those circles that are part of the Spring Bouquet dies to add some black centers to some of my flowers. And I actually went and added a few more flowers as well. I added a few to the bottom right of my card. And you can see here that I also I'm adding some Sweet on You gems around my card for a little bit of bling. I really like how that looks. And I'm just using my little tonic pokey tool to go ahead and put those down. I'm just kind of moving them around. I want them to be close to my little flower petals, tight into the flowers, and just kind of try to fill some of this space on the card that's empty space with some of those little gems. And now I'm just taking some stickles and I'm adding some really pretty little glitter stickle areas to the centers of my cards. And I love how this looks. I love how it adds just a little bit of sparkle and shine. I love how this card turned out. It is super bright and cheerful and happy and rainbow. And there's nothing like rainbow to cheer people up. And I just feel like this is the time to do some cheering up. And this would be a great card to give anybody that you are super thankful for. And I know I have some people in my life that need to have this card. Thank you so much. I really appreciate you stopping by today. Have an amazing day. I hope to see you another time here on Honeybee Stamps. Bye-bye.